So Cyberpunk 2077 came out about a week ago at this point, and everyone and their mothers are saying that Cyberpunk is going to save their parents' marriage, and that their dog will come back to life, and the world will just be saved from all hunger and war. The world will be a perfect place after Cyberpunk 2077 releases. In other words, this game was overhyped to shit. I have never seen a more overhyped game in my life. People expected Cyberpunk to be the second coming of Christ or something, and I never really understood why. Yeah, sure, Cyberpunk was in development for like maybe 8 years, but I don't think people saw Duke Nukem Forever and its 11-year development hell cycle and started praising it as the best game ever. In fact, when it came out, it was actually pretty mediocre. And that leads me into my first point about Cyberpunk. If you don't know, Cyberpunk 2077 runs awful on last-gen consoles. The PS4 and the Xbox One don't run any more than 15 FPS on the game. And even on PC, it doesn't even perform well there, even if you have a really good graphics card and really good specs. The only console that actually looks like it performs the game pretty well is the PS5 and Xbox Series X. Of course, I don't have Cyberpunk 2077 because I don't have a PS5 or Xbox Series X yet, and I'm sure as hell not going to play it on the PS4 with the terrible frame rates and the terrible textures. But anyway, Cyberpunk 2077 has showed me something about game design. It doesn't matter how much you delay a game, it still isn't guaranteed to come out perfect. Like I said earlier, Duke Nukem Forever was in development for 11 years, and the game came out not too good. Now, I don't have an opinion on Cyberpunk because, as I said, I don't have Cyberpunk. But from the review scores, it doesn't look like people like it. Not entirely because of the story or the gameplay. People don't like it because they literally just can't run it. And I think this might be the fault of CD Projekt Red to a certain extent. If you remember, in November when they announced they were going to delay the game to December 10th, they said that they would still have to do a little bit of testing. They tested on older hardware, also known as the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. And look how they turned out now. You can barely run them at 15 FPS, and the textures look like they were made on a PS1. And the only viable consoles you can really play Cyberpunk on are the PS5 and Xbox Series X. And even those I heard had some bugs. But on the contrary, delaying a game can also have it succeed. Breath of the Wild had a really good score, and the game was in development for 5 years. But I also feel like the bad review score was also attributed to overhyping a game. This game has been overhyped to absolute shit. Like I said earlier, this game was overhyped for a long time. The game looks really good. Personally, when I saw it at E3, when I first heard about it at E3 2019, I thought it looked great. I didn't think it would change my life and make me unlock my 7th chakra or anything. I just thought it was a pretty good game. But when you have such high expectations, especially for a video game, you're most likely not going to be impressed when your unrealistic standards of the game aren't met. What I've learned from playing games like Persona is that if you approach the game with low or mid expectations, you can come out of it thinking that the game was really good. I say this because I had low expectations for Persona because I didn't like the fact that it was an RPG. I had low expectations for the game. I beat the game 2 weeks later, and now it's one of my favorite games of all time. You see where I'm getting at with this? Now, on the contrary, again, overhyping a game doesn't instantly mean its failure or people's disapproval of the game. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate was a great success, and that game was overhyped, at least in my opinion. But I feel like people shouldn't fear that much for Cyberpunk 2077 being a shit show to play on last-gen consoles. I've seen this with releases in the past. There's always going to be glitches with at least 1 or 2 games that release. But soon enough, I assure you the game will run amazing on last-gen consoles like the PS4, just not right now. It's still weird that Cyberpunk 2077 still came out this bad on last-gen consoles though. CD Projekt Red had no excuse for this. The game was announced in 2012. They had basically the entire PS4's lifespan to develop the game for the PS4. And for some reason it came out bad on PS4 and came out great on PS5. It doesn't really make any sense to me, but I don't know, I'm not a gamer. game designer. I don't know it. But I also kind of expected the game to kind of flop in this department. People were basically begging CD Projekt Red to release the game. People were taking jobs off to play Cyberpunk 2077. CD Projekt Red was being pressured into releasing the game early, and people definitely got what they wanted. They got a really unfinished game. Not on the surface level. On the surface level, the game is definitely finished. The story is completely finished, everything like that. The game's just lacking in the performance department, where you need a 3090 Ti to get above 20 FPS on it, because the game didn't have proper testing in that department yet. But either way, like I said, when this problem gets resolved, soon enough we'll all be playing Cyberpunk 2077 on our 7-year-old hardware, because we can't buy a PS5 because the scalpers are all eating them up. That's all I have to say about Cyberpunk 2077. And before I wrap up this video, I just have to say this one last thing. Don't have such high expectations for a game. And then when the game comes out, don't expect it to be good when you're quitting your jobs over it.